How Prabhupada was saying we were being cheated by the Makutwalas and the Loy Bazaar shopkeepers. But what he didn't say, and I thought, maybe people don't know this, but Srila Prabhupada actually started a Makut business right here at Krishna Balaram Mandir. It used to be in the guest house, and then when Taparia House, which is now the Goshala, was donated, it moved over there. So Srila Prabhupada actually started a Makut business. And his plan is that all the devotees from across the world, the different temples, would order the outfits for the deities from Krishna Balaram's Makut business. Makut means crown, for those of you that don't know. And he said that in Vrindavan, we should have all the things to sell to the devotees for the deities. Whatever we needed for the deities should be made by the devotees, manufactured, whatever, here. And in Mayapur, they should make all the devotee paraphernalia, the dhotis, the saris, etc. And that was his plan, so that our money stayed within our society. And it went on for quite a few years, but eventually whatever happened, and it closed. But that was Prabhupada's plan, and I thought, oh, people probably don't know that, because, you know, half the story was told in the Bhagavatam class. So that was Prabhupada's plan. I think in Mayapur they still sell some devotee he wanted them to actually, what's the word? Whole cottage industry, but actually, make the dhotis on the looms. And at one point we had 80 workers making crowns for deities all over ISKCON. And there was a big factory. That was after it moved to the Goshala, the Gurukul, and there used to be a big room. It's changed now. And there was 80 workers, and there was a lot of manufacturing going on. It was really wonderful to see. But Maya has her way of destroying things. So I thought that'd be interesting. And what else I was thinking, another story that people might not know about Prabhupada in Vrindavan. Well, actually something interesting happened the other day in that it was broad daylight, and I was in a kind of a dark corridor, but not that dark, it was daylight, and someone said to me, do you know where the light switches are? The light wasn't on. And I said, yes, but why would you want the light on? It's daytime. And it made me realize how people don't really know how careful Srila Prabhupada was with things like fans and lights, and he was very careful with our facilities, with the things we have, because ultimately everything belongs to Krishna. So I told this devotee, I said, well, I'm going to tell you a Prabhupada story. I said, I was cleaning Prabhupada's house in Bombay, the old house up on the top of the apartments, not the new house. And Prabhupada was just a few meters away, and I turned the light on so he could walk into the room with the light already on. I thought, oh, I'll save Prabhupada the effort of putting the light on. And when he said, and as soon as he saw the light on, he said, who has left this light on? He was extremely frugal. And another story that I hadn't forgotten, but I've never told it, also in Bombay in like 1975. Prabhupada made everyone move into one room, all the offices. There were a few offices, and it was very austere. Don't think we were living the life of luxury, we weren't. It was very austere. And there were a few offices, because it was an apartment. It was an apartment that was being used for managerial purposes. And there were a few rooms with offices, and Prabhupada made everyone move into one room, and he said, one fan, one light. So when we think about that, it really shows us it makes me a bit embarrassed, you know, the way I'm not as austere as I used to be. Let's put it like that. But there are interesting ways that Prabhupada did things, you know, how he tried to start the business, Makut business, and successfully started it, how he was very careful with money, the lights, the fans, everything. He gives us a little insight into Prabhupada's managerial ideas. Well, I'll tell a story, because someone was saying the other day how, I think it was the girls' night in Prabhupada's house, how sometimes you get the meaning of what happened, you understand what Prabhupada wanted later. You know, at the time it might not be an obvious thing. And this happened to me with when I took my second initiation from Srila Prabhupada. It was also in Bombay. And I went into the room to learn the Gayatri mantra from Prabhupada personally. And I'd collected some money, and I'd spent some of the money on gifts, and I'd taken some of the money. I mean, I didn't know much. I was a brand new devotee in one sense. And I took Prabhupada a lot of gifts. I took him a lotus flower garland, and a daub, because everyone knew that Prabhupada liked daubs, and some sandalwood oil, because Prabhupada liked his head to be massaged with sandalwood oil, not his body, because it's cooling. And some sandalwood paste I'd made, and I'd bought a little silver bowl for the sandalwood paste to go in, and I'd got a flower, and I had all this stuff, and I'd wrapped some of it up in hot pink tissue paper, which in those days was the only colour tissue paper you could get in India. I'm sure you can get every colour now. In those days, they call it Rani in Hindi, Rani colour, you know, like your sorrow. And I took it in, and Prabhupada was like opening it, and he said to me, so many things. And he was there, and just for a glimpse, it was like Prabhupada was a child opening these presents. And I was like his mom, you know, his mother, you know, there with the birthday presents, although it wasn't a birthday. And it was a really wonderful few minutes of my life. And then when, then the whole mood changed, because he was teaching me Gayatri and the fingers and the chanting, and what did I know about Sanskrit pronunciation? Nothing. But the whole mood changed into one of the guru and the disciple. But years later, when I thought about that, I remembered one lecture that I'd heard Srila Prabhupada give also in Bombay, where he said, the most important thing for brahmachari is to see all women as the mother. And I realized that Prabhupada, I felt like Prabhupada's mother for those few minutes. I mean, how, you know, I was like 21 or 22 or something, and Srila Prabhupada was, well, technically an old man, you know, he called himself the fag end of his life. So it was, I got a little, you know, it was a real insight in what Prabhupada, how Prabhupada is, and it was a really special moment to see Prabhupada like that. Another time that I was, well, alone with Prabhupada, actually, I used to clean Prabhupada's house here in Vrindavan. I was very lucky. Shruti Rupa was Prabhupada's cook and house cleaner, and I used to help her. And then she was leaving, and she said, okay, Moksha, that's it. You're in charge of the house now, bye. So I had to look after the house, which was really, really lucky. And I used to start in the bathroom. You probably don't see the bathroom, it's through the bedroom and off. There's a bathroom, and beyond the bathroom there's the toilet. And the marble was stained in the bathroom from Prabhupada's massage oils from him taking baths. and he wanted the stains out of the marble. So every morning I'd go in there. It was very nice going into Prabhupada's house, because I'd go after Mongol Arctic, and I'd go the back way. You used to be able to go through the garden into Prabhupada's house, and I'd creep into his breakfast room where the palanquin is now, and where Prabhupada's sitting at the table, the little chowki. I'd go through there, and the doors would be open into Prabhupada's main darshan room, and he'd be there sitting in his desk translating. So I used to like try to crawl and close the doors without Prabhupada being disturbed, you know, and I'd try to close them very quietly, very silently, so that I could start cleaning the back of the house, because Prabhupada would then get up, not long after, he'd go out on his morning walk and then give Bhagavatam class. So I had that whole period to clean the house, because it's a sizable house. It's got, you know, the bedroom and the servant's room and the breakfast room and that big darshan room. And sometimes people would come in and help when I was lucky, because it's not like now where there's 50 million people here. In those days there were very few of us that stayed the whole year in Vrindavan, because, you know, in the heat it was unbearable, and then it was cold, and there was never any electricity. If you were lucky enough to have a fan, it didn't really make any difference, because there was never any electricity. It was interesting times, cold water, but it was also extremely ecstatic times. So anyway, back to the story. So I'd close the doors, and sometimes Prabhupada would hear me and look up, and sometimes he didn't. But Prabhupada, there wasn't any real interaction between us, because, you know, I'd close the doors and that was it. I'd sealed off that half of the house. So one morning I'm there, and because I was really scrubbing that bathroom with the white powder, you know, that white powder you can buy in India. It's very toxic, but really good at cleaning. With the hard jaru, you know, not the soft one, the hard one. I was down, I was Indian style, squatting, sari around the knees, scrubbing away to get rid of all these stains. And I'd been doing it for some weeks, so they were pretty much going. So I'm scrubbing away, and suddenly the doors to the bathroom open, and that was like, no, the doors to the bathroom never opened, and they're open. And I look up, don't forget, there I am, sorry, around the knees, all that white powder everywhere, all over my feet, all over the floor, and it's Prabhupada. I'm thinking, oh my God, you know. But Prabhupada was such a perfect gentleman. He said to me, "May I come in?" It just melts your heart, doesn't it? May I come in? And I gabbled, of course, yes, Srila Prabhupada, of course, Srila Prabhupada, come in, Srila Prabhupada. And I scurried out, and the floor in Prabhupada's house is black, and I remember my feet left all these black marks. White marks from the powder. And then when Prabhupada came out, he didn't leave any marks, and I couldn't work out how he didn't leave the marks when I'd made this huge mess all over the floor, and Prabhupada just seemed to skim right over it, not a mark in sight. But it just struck me, you know, how a gentleman Srila Prabhupada is. May I come in, you know, not like, what the hell are you doing in my bathroom, you know. A real gentleman Srila Prabhupada. So those are two of my favorite stories. And who are you speaking today? There's some more Prabhupada devotees speaking. Yeah, who? I don't want to take all the time.
Well, you might as well keep going until they show up. Wasn't David supposed to speak today?
David's making garlands. Are you speaking? Do you want to come up and speak? Come. Yeah. Oh, I thought you were. No, okay, well, I'll carry on until someone comes. Are you speaking tonight? I don't want to take all the time and then upset anyone. No? Okay, it's 10 to 6. Well, the first time in Rath Yatra in 1973 in London, it was a huge Rath Yatra. Mahavishnu Maharaj had inherited some crazy amount of money in those days, £30,000 or something, which was a fortune in 1973. And they blew the whole lot on Rath Yatra. And they made this incredible, there was a special magazine, there were awnings off of those lions in Trafalgar Square. It was really special Rath Yatra, and of course Prabhupada was there. And that was the Rath Yatra where Prabhupada danced the whole way. So I was distributing some of the magazines in the crowd, and suddenly all the hairs on my body suddenly stood on end. And I looked round like that, because, you know, it was like an electric shock. And Prabhupada was like a couple of people away, you know. Actually, Prabhupada was in the middle, and there was a ring around him, Hamsadutta, Tribhuvanath, all those old guys from the British Yatra. But it was amazing how, you know, I felt Srila Prabhupada before I saw him, this like jolt of electricity. And he was chanting, arms up, and it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And when he heard about Mahavishnu Maharaj spending all that money on Rath Yatra, Prabhupada said, he spends his money wisely. So there, if you ever get any money, you know what to do. Rath Yatra. Let me think. Actually, the other evening when the ladies were speaking, Kusha, Arundhati, and Anada, they were talking about the importance of children in this society, in our society. And it's a really nice story. Again, back to Bombay. This night, again, 1975 in Bombay. And I started a little school for street children. I mean, some of them went to Marathi school, but it was the holidays or something, so we started this school, this little school. And the children, I mean, they were very poor children. Their clothes, you know, they used to wear those little vests. You know what a vest is, everyone. And there'd be more holes than cloth. And they were clean, but they were dirty, they were stained. I mean, they were very, very poor children. Juhu was like a fishing village in those days. I mean, now it's, you know, the real estate is some ridiculous price. In those days, it was a fishing village on the outskirts of Bombay. Now it seems like it's the center of Bombay. So we started this school, and there was one Marathi speaker helped, and we did it every day. We got them new clothes, they had breakfast with us, we chanted japa, we had kirtans, and one day Srila Prabhupada heard the children chanting. So he said, "Who's that chanting?" He questioned who was chanting. So I think it was Hari Sori was the secretary then, and Prabhupada said, "Oh, we have." Hari Sori said, "We have a small school." And the next thing, Hari Sori comes to see me and he says, "Prabhupada wants to see the children." So the next evening, you know, we dressed them all up, and I had them all draw a picture of Krishna. Now, I was a lot more naive in those days, because I didn't put the best one on the top. And you know, there were small children, and it was quite a bit of a scribble of a picture that was on the top. But I'll come to that. So we went up, and I handed the pictures to Prabhupada, and they went in the room. And don't forget, Prabhupada had a lot of very important businessmen would come to see him. It's not like there was no one in that room and that Prabhupada had plenty of time for children. He was a busy man. That he called Bombay was his office. So it was business. You know, the room was full of important people. And this is what gets me. although the room was full of important people, Bombay Wallahs, Prabhupada had time for those little beggar children. Now, isn't that wonderful? You know, Prabhupada had time for everyone. He didn't distinguish, like he had all the children come in to see him. And he looked at the picture and he looked at it and he said to me, "What is this?" Because I hadn't put the best picture on the top. Now I'd put the best picture on the top. You learn by your mistakes, don't you? It was kind of a bit of a screw. And I said, "It's Krishna." He said, always put the best pictures on the top, because that's what people see first. But the main thing is that Prabhupada had that time for the children. It's an amazing thing. Room full of important people, but Prabhupada had time for those little children. Something to think about, isn't it, and remember. Okay, where am I? Any others? Chinmay hasn't turned up. No one's turned up. Arundhati, you want to add anything to your... Sorry? Okay, so we've done... Pardon?
You were here when Prabhupada left?
Yeah, I was here when Prabhupada left.
Maybe you could describe some of that for us.
Well, I mean, I can tell you what we did. Do people want to know? Yeah. So, it was November the 14th, 1977, and it was also my 25th birthday. And you know, on your birthday, you kind of get into an enjoying mood, don't you? You know, well, maybe not everyone, but I do, okay? And I'd been brought a new sari, and, you know. Now, I would like to say that it never, ever occurred to me that Srila Prabhupada would leave his body. I don't know why, I don't know, just covered by Maya. I remember Dhananjaya told me that Rameshwara had told him that Prabhupada said he had a special boon that he could live to 108. So it never even occurred to me that Prabhupada would leave his body. And it's really ridiculous, really. It's just the way you get covered over. Because I saw Srila Prabhupada return from Rishikesh. Interestingly, what happened that night was, the temple manager, one of the temple managers or something, I used to live at the Goshala, the old part, not the new part. And one of the temple managers came over to get me because Pradyumna Prabhu had just come, and he said Prabhupada's arriving in the morning. He'd come ahead so he could get his rooms ready, because Prabhupada's rooms were kept locked when he wasn't there. They weren't like museum pieces. Everything was locked away when he left, because there were few of us here to do everything. It wasn't like there was a lot of manpower. So in the middle of the night I disappeared, and it was kind of a bit of a scandal the next morning. Where was I? I'd gone off in the middle of the night, but someone had come to get me, to bring me to the rooms to get them ready. And when I got there, the room was full of people and they'd started, but obviously I knew where everything went because I'd been looking after Prabhupada's house. And I remember I was all upset because someone, instead of sweeping the dust out, had just thrown water to sweep the dust out like that. So, you know, it was like this big muddy mess everywhere. And, you know, first you get rid of the dust, then you throw the water. So, you know, it's like, oh my God, you know, Prabhupada's coming, I'm paddling in mud. And also often the holes where the water's supposed to go down, often they're blocked and the water doesn't go, so you're standing in a puddle. So and the house got ready, and when Prabhupada came, he was carried from the car. You know, his house is right by the side entrance, the guest house entrance, and he was carried in, and it was actually a real shock. You know, because, you know, Prabhupada's famous for the way he walks, isn't he? You know, head up and very strong walk. And there's Prabhupada being carried. And it was a shock, but still, it didn't occur to me that Srila Prabhupada would leave. And another part of that time in history is when Prabhupada left Vrindavan to go to London. Well, he was going to New York, but as we all know, he only got as far as London, where he had a small operation and returned. But he left here at like late, like midnight, and we were all up, and we all came to the temple to see Prabhupada off. And he was lying in the back of his ambassador car, the old Austin A40 for any Britishers here, and he was on some guest house mattresses. And as Providence, karma, good luck would have it, as the car took off, it stopped. And it stopped in such a position that I was looking down at Srila Prabhupada, and he was looking up at me, and we were just looking at one another like for, it seemed like a long time. I don't know how long it was. And it was very shocking to see Srila Prabhupada leaving in such a weak state. You know, you could see the skin was just on top of the bones. And I was really shocked because I hadn't seen Prabhupada for a while at that point. I was very shocked to see Prabhupada going off preaching in that way. But it also made me realize how important preaching is to Srila Prabhupada, that he would undertake such a journey in such a condition, and that preaching really is the essence. So that was a couple of times when Prabhupada came and, well, left. He came from Rishikesh. I can't remember what was first anymore. I have to check it out. But when Prabhupada came back from Rishikesh, that was the last time I got Prabhupada's rooms ready, because his bed had been moved, because Prabhupada's original bed is through the darshan room, through the servant's room, and over on the right. That was Prabhupada's bedroom. But now they brought him that big bed and they put him in the darshan room, which previously had those white sheets, you know, Maiwari style, with the pillows, and, you know, we'd turn the sheets over and wash them every so often, quite regularly. So now that was all gone. All the sheets and the floor were gone, and Prabhupada's big bed was put in there. So going back to November the 14th, well, it was a seemingly normal day. I mean, previously, not that much previously, but earlier on in that time period, Prabhupada had been going into the temple and sitting under the tree, and the Gurukul kids would dance. And the kirtan, though, was no kartals or drums. It was just a little clapping. It was a quiet kirtan. And Prabhupada used to put his feet on this cushion with a lotus flower on, and they'd put mats over the cushion, and they'd hand the mats out, so people got these maha mats. I don't have a maha mat, but I do have the cushion. I made it. I'm going to give it to Prabhupada's house when I die. It's going to put it in my will. But so it was a normal day, and I was running the makut business over at the Goshala. And one man had come from Gwalior with some gota work. I used to make gota outfits for deities, and business as usual. And suddenly a devotee comes on a bike, who never normally would come, what to speak of on a bike, and he came to see my dear god sister Vishalini and said, "Prabhupada's going to leave his body today, we need your milk to bathe him in." Just like that. That's how I heard. Can you imagine the shock? And just like that. "Can we have the milk, because Prabhupada's going to leave his body?" It was like. So Vishalini looked at me, I looked at Vishalini, and we just locked our doors and ran to the temple. She was carrying a baby. And, you know, the go-to guy from Gwalior, I left him standing there. He was still standing, you know, he's like, he just left everything, because it's what you do, isn't it? You drop everything. And as we were running to the temple, we saw like a Baba-type devotee who used to come to the temple a lot, and we told him, and he turned around and came with us. And we ran to the temple. In those days, you didn't come the back way. You went on the main Chatikara Road through Fogel Ashram. It was very different then, and very empty, and no cars and no rickshaws. And we got to the temple, and we went into Srila Prabhupada's room. I remember Vidya stayed behind because she was cutting tulsis for the tulsi garlands, and she didn't come because she wanted that the tulsi garlands would be made. And I think she sat there making the tulsi garlands at one point. And by the time we got there, the room was full of all the devotees. And we chanted the whole day. We didn't stop. People didn't leave that room, only, you know, we just stayed and we chanted the whole day. And I remember the Ayurvedic Kaviraj had said that Prabhupada's lungs would fill with water and it would take so many hours. And he was spot on. He took exactly, because I remember I had a watch and I calculated, and he was spot on. I always remember that. And at some point I know the Kaviraj asked if Prabhupada wanted anything, and Prabhupada said, and these were obviously, no, not counting Hare Krishna, but Prabhupada's last words were, Kachicha nehe, no desire. Excuse my Hindi. But, so we just stayed and we chanted the whole day. The whole day, it's like riveted to the spot. How could you move, you know? And we were younger then, so we could stand all day. I couldn't do it now. But I remember it's like whoever was supposed to be there was there, because people had gone to Delhi for the day. Imagine that. You went to Delhi for the day and that all happened while you were gone. And just not long before Prabhupada left, the devotees arrived from Delhi. Because in those days, it's not like now where there's a million taxis. I mean, we didn't even have telephones. If you wanted to make a telephone call, you had to go to Agra. Can you imagine that? No electricity, no telephones, water in the well. Well, there was water in the guest house, but not over at Taparia House. We had to get it out the well. And I always remember one of my god sisters, Mohini Shakti, I always remember the horror on her face as she ran into the room, and this was like minutes before Prabhupada left, and saw, I always remember her face, I can still see it now. So we stood there and we chanted the whole day, and Prabhupada left at 7:20, 7:25, somewhere around there. I don't think anyone was, you know. And then the ladies left the room, and the men changed Prabhupada, and then he was put on the palanquin, not the one we use today, the one in the, it's a new palanquin I noticed, the palanquin that's made out, you know, the Newa where it's all woven, the one in Prabhupada's breakfast room. And he was, the palanquin went in front of the deities. I remember one Pujari, an Australian devotee, I can't remember his name, and he told me that they rushed the Arctic, and as they ran, as the Pujaris ran back to the house, because don't forget everyone was in that house who was here, as they ran back to the house, Prabhupada was just leaving as they ran in, they just got there. So after, Prabhupada was put on his palanquin, and they tied the palanquin to the Vyasasan, you know, where the lions are. And he spent the night on them. We all stayed up all night chanting. And then after Mangalartik, but first they put Prabhupada in front of each set of deities on the palanquin, and we circumambulated the palanquin in front of Krishna and Balaram. And then we chanted all night with Prabhupada tied you know, in his palanquin on the Vyasa side. And the next morning is what we recreated today. We took Prabhupada on the palanquin. Not the same route as today, but we took him to Radharaman temple. And then we came back, and Prabhupada went into his samadhi. The hole had already been dug. The silt was packed around, and the sand. And then one danda, one stick, was put from Prabhupada's head up so that we'd know where Prabhupada was. Otherwise, you know, you fill a hole, you know. So there was a hole, a stick coming up where Prabhupada's head was, so we'd know exactly where Prabhupada's body was. And then for a long time, there was like a mound of earth on top of where Prabhupada was, and that's where we used to have Mongol Arctic. And that's when they changed that we sang the samsara prayers at Prabhupada's samadhi, and then we sang Vibra Varishesha at Krishna and Balaram's Mongol Arctic. But I remember that day after, you know, the sand went in and the earth and, you know, the stick, and I remember standing there for hours after, just sitting there. Well, it seemed like hours, it probably wasn't, but like actually in shock. You don't realize until later when you look back, but it's a shock, you know. It's just like, how could it happen? And I remember the after Prabhupada left, you know, before all this, I remember one devotee screaming like in so much pain, a Latin devotee, just crying his eyes up. And another devotee came and slapped him because he thought he was having some hysterics or something. But we all experience our grief differently. And, you know, we have to go with however it is we're feeling our grief, isn't it? So that is that. Now I've depressed everyone. You want to come up, Ma, David?
No, I already spoke on Monday, but I was just remembering, everybody remembers where they were. Then Vaishasika, he told all the Sankirtan devotees that maybe we should take a day back the next day. And so, but then he said, no, Prabhupada would want us to continue on, and everybody was wondering, how can we continue on? And he said, because Prabhupada is still here in his books and his instructions, and he was really helping everyone to keep that sense of Prabhupada is still with us. But it was very difficult, like you're saying, in shock. Like we felt like we were
Orphans.
orphans and kind of almost robots going through the oceans. So I remember we stayed back the next day. We had a nice program, but then we all went out that afternoon because Vice was so, strong about this and what Prabhupada would want us to do. And that's what keeps us going till today, isn't it? Prabhupada wants us to keep going.
There's no choice, you have to keep going.
And
No choice.
there's no retirement.
Yeah, I try. This is going to be my friend who's supposed to be speaking tonight as well. I can't see. Oh, I don't know who it is. I'm trying to think of a happy story to end on. We took a deity of Prabhupada, because Prabhupada, there was a whole debate before Prabhupada left that he wanted to go to Govardhan Hill on Bailgari, on an ox cart. And, there were two camps. Obviously, Lokanath Maharaj wanted to go on the Bailgari with Prabhupada, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj didn't want Prabhupada to go on the ox cart, In the end, Prabhupada didn't go. So what we did after Prabhupada left, there was a deity, about just a small brass deity like this. I don't know how it came or where it came. And we took this deity around Govardhan Hill. I don't think it was the full parikram though. I think it was a bit of a shortcut parikram. but we took the deity of Prabhupada on, not the one here, we took the deity of Prabhupada. So Prabhupada went in his deity form on his Govardhan Parikram. And now my mind's gone dead about other stories I could tell you. Prabhupada was very observant, he never missed a thing. Prabhupada used to have those big clay water pots, you know? What's the name? I can't remember the name. What's the Hindi name? Yeah, Mutka, that's it. Mutka. That's the name I know. And they really weigh a ton when they're full of water. So I used to, you know, there was a well where there's, not opposite the Samadhi where the museum is, where all the books are, that used to be a well there. And it was sweet water, but you know, when you overuse a well, it turns salty. But it used to be sweet water. It ended up salty like everywhere else. So while it was still sweet, you know, I used to change the water. And one day I looked in and it looked full. It didn't look like any water was gone. And it was late and it was heavy and it was hot. So I didn't change the water. But Prabhupada knew that the water wasn't changed. I mean, maybe because there was no water on the outside, I don't know, but Prabhupada didn't miss a thing, and you know, he complained, you know, he wanted the water changed every day. So nothing was lost with Srila Prabhupada. But shall I tell the story of the burning curtains? You said you couldn't remember it, I know you were joking. One day I was cleaning Prabhupada's room and it was winter and there was a fire and there was a brahmachari helping me. So he moved the fire, which was on, and the curtains went up on fire. And he's screaming like a banshee, you know, screaming. And I come running in and he's standing next to a full bucket of water screaming with the fire. He was a brahmachari, he was thinking about other things. So of course I picked the bucket of water up and threw it, and that was the end of the fire. But the curtains were in tatters, you know, black. And there's a big mess on the floor. So, and I was thinking, oh my God, you know, Prabhupada's already told me off about not changing the water. What's he going to say about the curtain missing, you know? What the hell am I going to do? So I remembered that I'd seen it. It's blue. If you go in Prabhupada's room now, you'll see the frames are blue on the curtain wall. There's these frames with blue. That's the old curtain material. They made the curtains they made that. So I was thinking, oh God. And I remembered that there was a storeroom, room 19 of the guest house, and I had a key to it. You know, in those days there were a few of us, we'd have keys and things. Now I wouldn't even know what the key looked like. So I was running up there, you know, opening the storeroom, and there's some same cloth. So I grab it and I'm running down, and you know, there's puddle, you know, I have to get rid of the puddle of water with all the burnt cloth in it, and I put this curtain up, and the miracle is it fits. It's exactly the right size. But you know how curtains are two and you draw them like that and they close? This is only one curtain. So I'm thinking, oh my God, you know, there were two curtains like any normal window, and now there's one curtain. And I thought, well, there's no choice, this is what I have to do. So I put the one curtain up and closed it to, you know, opened it to the one side, and I thought, I wonder what Prabhupada's going to say, because I know he doesn't miss a thing. He notices everything. I mean, even when I was in Bombay one time, in Prabhupada's room, we were welcoming Prabhupada, and I was holding Jashamati Nandan's oldest daughter, because his wife Radhakund was cooking for Prabhupada, and Prabhupada took one look at me and the baby, and he said to me, "Where's the mother?" He knew everything, you know, he knew which kid belonged to who. Not that there were that many kids, but still. So and I said cooking Prabhupada, and it's like, you know. So, so I thought, he knows all the kids, he knows when the water's not changed, he knows when the lights are left on. What's he going to say about one curtain in the middle of the... And he never said a thing. I think he knew that would have like pushed me over the edge, you know. His curtain would have been the finish of me. He never said a thing. And you can see, it's in one of the Chaitanya Charitamritas. The kids that I used to teach all know, because we used to look at this. And you can see there's this picture of Prabhupada's room. And two of the windows have normal curtains, one on either side, and the one in the middle is only one curtain. And you can see the picture. And that's the story of why there's only one curtain in Prabhupada's room. Funny, yeah? But Prabhupada never said a thing about the curtain. He knew when, you know, not to push us over the edge. I mean, looking back now, I mean, I could have probably taken it down and made it into two, but I didn't think of it at the time. Because like now we pop to the tailor, it's no big deal. But in those days, I didn't see money for at least 2 years. I didn't see any money for 2 years. And to get to the bazaar, you know, I was going to go on my own to a bazaar, to a tailor. I mean, it was kind of scary, you know. We just used to stay here. If we went anywhere, we went together. But so I never got to a tailor to change the curtain to two-tip. It was very different life then. Can you imagine? You didn't see any money for years. I didn't see any money for years. Never went to the bazaar and bought a sari. You know, if someone gave me a sari, that was cool. I've made up for it since then, unfortunately. But that was our life. It was very simple, you know, no electricity, you know, we got nice kitchery. We got very nice kitchery. Actually, the ladies used to eat in, you know, where they've been having the Katha, you know, like you go in Prabhupada's house in the room opposite. That wasn't part of Prabhupada's house. That was, first it was a Punjabi State Bank, National Bank, can't remember. Punjab. And then the devotees the lady devotees we used to eat in there. That's how few of us there were. We all fit in that little room. All the ladies used to eat in there. So it just shows you how few of us there were. It's a different life now, huh? You know? Can you imagine? Didn't go to the bazaar, didn't know what money looked like. Totally different life. Well, it's 25 past, so I've managed to keep going. Are there any questions that I can answer? No, you know, no funny questions or I can't answer.
Was there any particular reason why Srila Prabhupada wanted the water changed in the mud pot? Because I use mud pot and I don't change the water, so I'm just curious.
I don't know. I really don't know. Because with mine, I used to leave it until it, you know, till it finished. Because they're really heavy when they're full. I mean, they're big. It's like, you know. I was a skinny little girl then. That changed as well.
Thank you so much. Maybe silly or stupid question. It's a silly or stupid question. It's a lack in my own knowledge. Where are Prabhupada's deities now?
Prabhupada's deities?
Yes.
It disappeared and somebody stole it.
I have to say, that night when Prabhupada left, people were stealing things. It's really wrong, isn't it?
I don't think the deities were now.
No, they weren't.
They were in Katha. That's what I heard.
No, there were no. I didn't see Prabhupada. I don't know, Arundhati, you must know more than me, but I didn't see Prabhupada, you know, traveling with deities ever. Did you?
Yeah, well, I got to various deities.
So you know more than me.
Yeah, that was in the early days. I was.
Yeah,
He had asked somebody to take care So I got to do that for a number of weeks, and that was back in 1969.
Yeah.
And I don't think he was traveling with his deities then, but eventually he was not traveling with his deities anymore. And I heard that they were in Calcutta, and then I heard that they had been stolen. I didn't know exactly when. So that's all I know. I'm not too certain.
Well, thank you very much.